Good morning, planet Earth. Christian Barker here, and thank you for joining us wherever you may be and whatever time of day it may be in your part of the world. Appropriately enough, today I have the pleasure of chatting with leading travel journalist Maria Shollenbarger. Maria is the travel editor of the Financial Times How to Spend It supplement each weekend. She also writes for Wish magazine in Australia, and Travel and Leisure, various other titles. Maria is joining us right now, live from Big Sur. Maria Shollenbarger. Hello, Maria. Are
Hello.
you there? There she is,
How are you?
the lady herself. Very good. How are you?
I'm well.
I'm as well as can be at 8 o'clock in the
I,
morning.
I read it somewhere, or a friend said, you say you're pandemic fine. Are you
And
okay? I'm pandemic okay. Like all,
yeah,
I mean, if you had followed, you would know I am much better than okay. I mean, where I live, I'm very lucky to have landed in a place that's beautiful, and I, we can roam really far from this house and still be observing
yeah,
all the codes of social distancing conduct and sheltering in place conduct and everything. So very lucky.
yeah. Look, I keep moaning because I keep thinking that I should be like Leonardo DiCaprio in the last bit of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just floating around in my pool with a jug of margaritas in my hand. But the fact that I can't do that
Your
is
pool is
very much
closed, isn't it?
it's
My
it's it's
pool
it's
is
very
off.
much first world problems not being allowed to
Yeah,
swim in the pool.
yeah,
As you were saying when I chatted with you the other day, being stuck in a 300, 400 square foot apartment in Rome or Paris or
yeah,
whatever would not be ideal, would it?
yeah. And just what they had to live with. So I had a funny thing happen, which is kind of the apotheosis of the life that people like us lead. I was on assignment in Spain
Hmm.
when they closed the border to Rome. I actually wrote about this at my new editor, who is amazing, Jo Ellison. At her behest, she thought it would be funny to have a story in the travel edition,
Yeah.
State of the World, that, isn't it funny? You should write about the fact that you ended up living with your mom and dad at age 49. Coronavirus, ha ha. I was like, yeah, funny. You have no idea how not funny, but she ended up publishing it, which is great. And it's quite different for How to Spend It, certainly for the travel edition.
Yeah.
But I was in Spain at a wellness clinic when they closed the Italian border. And because I was there on the Schengen visa while applying for my permanent residency, I was effectively locked out. I don't
Mm.
actually have the appropriate paperwork to get back into Italy. And I
Yeah.
thought about, and then Spain looked like it was going to close. And I thought about going back to England. And I have a permanent address there, but I don't actually have my old flat anymore.
Right.
So, and then my phone rang at 2 a.m. and my dad was like, Donald Trump is about to close the border. And I thought, when will
Yeah.
I get home? And
Mm.
for what I thought would be 3 or 4 weeks maximum, I thought I would like go to LA and go to Marin County to see my brother. And it's been here. But
Yeah.
I do have a teeny tiny little funny flat in Rome with no outdoor space. And I mean, you've probably read it was much stricter there. I've been in really
Mm.
constant communication with friends of mine, and you sort of had to print out and fill out a form every
Yeah.
time you left your house in case you got stopped. And it was pretty intense, much less
Yeah.
than now. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No, no. Following your Instagram feed, it seems like Carmel ain't too bad
now I
in the
slightly
scheme
feel
of
like they should
things.
have me on payroll.
Yeah.
you know, it's no, it's beautiful, and it has been particularly beautiful. I don't know if that's to do with the whatever 1/6 less carbon in the atmosphere I heard on
Yeah.
NPR today, or just that we had a really extravagant spring, but really beautiful. I'm reminded that it's a very beautiful part of the world, and I'm really reminded why people come from all over the world to see the place, because it's incredibly, not just the physical beauty of the landscapes, but the fact that so much of it is gazetted, is protected. State
Mm.
land, regional park, national park, even the marine reserve extends, I think, either 30 or 50 miles out from where I am, which is fantastic. So you don't see boats unless they're like private sailboats going by. It's really
amazing. You are engaged by the Tourist Commission
I
of Big Sur, aren't you?
well,
Amazing.
you live up
But
there.
no, look, it's somewhere that's been on my bucket list for ages. So yeah, it definitely
Have you
is.
never been
No, no, I
to
haven't spent
California
nearly
or
enough time in California. Pardon?
to California or to the
I've,
big
I've no, I've been to California a couple of times, all too briefly, but never. Mostly just that's really just 2 visits to Los Angeles. So yeah, a little bit different to the yeah, the
well,
coastal parts.
forward to.
But look, speaking thereof, and all of the difficulties that we're facing right now, and especially in the hospitality side of things, I wanted to ask you, what examples have you kind of heard of hospitality operators who, despite having been really hard hit by this crisis and really suffering in the hip pocket, are still endeavouring to give back and to do what they can. Stuff like I've heard that Claridge's in London
Yeah.
has kind of thrown open its rooms and its kitchen to NHS hospital workers from nearby hospitals.
I think all
Similar.
of Mayburn, I think the Barclay as well. I think that whole group has been doing. The Barclay had, which is in Knightsbridge, had kind of a little picnic stand out in front of the restaurant, and they were giving food out to be taken to frontline healthcare workers. I mean, a lot of people have stepped up because they understand, the optics, the positive optics are a
Yeah.
byproduct, but I think it really is coming from a place of feeling extremely responsible for contributing to that. Certainly, I mean, there was this study that the ILTM, the International Luxury Travel Market, commissioned. I think you and I were talking about it before. That sort of they researched, they observed what they called the luxury travel ecosystem, which is not just people employed in the travel industry, strict parameters thereof, but people like everybody from massage therapists at a day spa, or people who run food carts, all of these things that are paid by people who come from other places, as well as the people who live there. And the value of that economy is like above $2 trillion. Even conservatively estimated, it's $1.5 trillion. And that is, I think then a lot of these luxury hotels understand that it definitely looks good to give back, but they also, it is a really wonderful way to flag that all along they've been parts of their community. A good city hotel, a good Amalfi Coast hotel, a good Byron Bay hotel, like a Ray's or a Halcyon House. They know that they, even reaching out, a half a mile beyond where their bricks and mortar location is, they kind of owe it to their communities to show that they're part of that community.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
what the hotels on the Amalfi Coast, we referenced this earlier. I don't know if people watching know about a group of the Santa Caterina in Amalfi, the Sirenese in Positano, the San Pietro in Positano also, and Palazzo Avino in Ravello got together and generated a tremendous amount of support for an Italian-based vaccine research initiative at a hotel in Rome. And they did it by giving away extraordinary stays that were 100% subsidized by the hotel. So it was just completely out of pocket for them. And they did really, really well. And now the San Pietro has started another initiative for donations that they match to provide food boxes to people in need all up and down the peninsula. Because as you can imagine, a massive percentage of people who live in that area are seasonally employed. So what that means is they work their butts off 6 months of the year. And then, super enterprising young ones might go to Byron or to Bali to work what is the Italian winter season. But a lot of people don't. They have 4 or 5 maximum months of the year to make their money.
Yeah.
So if one season is gone, it's quite devastating for them.
Yeah. Well, and not to be too self-interested or self-centered about these things, but obviously the career of someone such as yourself, or the livelihood of someone such as yourself who makes a living writing about traveling, will have been affected by this situation. And there's only so many times that you can write about being stuck at home with mum and dad.
Yeah,
It's done now.
that's gone.
That,
Yeah, no,
that story's done.
unless I get a book deal, Christian, but
Pardon me?
unless I get a book deal, but I'm kidding. I don't think I will.
What would you call that? Like something like Eat, Pray, Love, I'm thinking, but
that's really catchy. I like that.
Something stay. Yeah. Anyway, we'll work on that. We'll work on that.
I mean, there have been a lot of that you may or may not have seen. I'm sure you've seen some of them. There have been a great many in all of the markets, the Australian market, the Asia Pacific market, Australian market, the UK market, the American market, webinars and Zoom talks and presentations of various people in our industry talking about what it's like for them and where they think it's going. And as regards us and the kind of work we will do going forward, I mean, like a lot of other aspects of this, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to predict it. Definitely there's less work. I mean, I can tell you that right now. Yeah. The FT is doing an incredible job of trying to keep us busy, afloat, reporting on things. Tom Robbins, the editor on the paper, and I are just starting to sort of help each other out a little bit. Quite a few publications have moratoriums on hiring freelancers, which is really, really leaving freelancers in a bit of.
I have encountered that, Maria. Yes, I have.
Wondering if you might have, unfortunately.
I've come across that moratorium.
Just as we were getting you rolling at how to spend it. Yeah. But
no, I wasn't referring to that, but yeah.
They've tried really hard to minimize and mitigate any fallout. Certainly, obviously, the staff comes first, but they are trying here and there to keep people in the fold and for them to do. And already the column that I write, Travelista, the travel news column, went away for a few months, and I thought might go away, forever or for a year. There was a moment when, I feel like a lot of us haven't known all along. It's been very hard to predict, obviously. But I feel like there was a moment when it really did look like there was going to be no need for a regular news column, because how on earth were people going to travel even domestically? But that's back in business for January, for August going forward. It's monthly again. So
that's
I
great.
don't know if that's my editor being especially bullish or supportive or some combination of the two. But and then meanwhile, magazines like what Melinda Stevens is doing with Condé Nast Traveler and what Jackie Gifford is doing with Travel and Leisure, those are magazines dedicated to travel. So they've had to really on their feet. I think both of them have done exceptional jobs, exceptionally. I mean, Melinda, especially, the creativity factor is kind of off the charts. But I think that they are trying to walk that line between being aware that you're going to look like an idiot if you refuse to acknowledge that there's this pandemic, raging across the planet, and trying to remind people that they can dream about that, and also trying to sort of distill, this is what the remit for all of us is, not just now. I would actually say, especially when people start traveling again, is to kind of to examine what's happening right now, to distill what the essence of travel should be and why we travel. And the luxury travel market, I was just looking at some stats before this. Almost 5 billion flights were purchased last year, and I think they said that like the number of flights purchased and taken, if we continue on anything like the trajectory we're on right now, we will go back to 1978 levels of flying in the year. And there are a lot of people, including people who work in the travel industry, who are probably thinking, oh, okay, well, a lot of it, you have to wonder, even from the position of the person who is, arbitrating it, having fun with it, selling it with what we do, how much of it, I mean, how sustainable was it ever going to be for like one luxury hotel company to be opening 18 properties in the next 3 years?
Yeah, sure.
In the Maldives and all of these, there's a lot out there already. It's important, I think, and I feel like just talking to people, just anecdotally, it has really distilled for people, like, what are you thinking about right now? What has been the place that you've thought about? What have been the trips that you've thought about? What do you want to do? Certainly a lot of people in this industry had already been talking about, experiential travel has existed now for well over a decade. It's out in the vernacular. The idea of slowing things down, going to fewer places, staying there for longer,
Yeah.
Engaging across as many elements and layers of culture as you can, was what we were all recognizing was the way forward anyway. And I feel the arrival of COVID-19 has just been such an enormous, smack in the face / catalyst to think a great deal more about that going forward, which doesn't necessarily make our jobs easy, because there's probably just going to be less out there. Product will be slowed down, if not kind of thinned out. The actual places that are opening, so much of what we do for a living is focused on the new anyway. I wouldn't mind seeing that change at all. I would love for people to start writing about the best, the perennial again.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, we've just had a sudden downpour here in Singapore, one of our tropical storms, so I had to shut the door next to me before the rain poured all over me. No, look, absolutely. And I wonder whether, given that I think, and I think you're absolutely right, that we will be, instead of doing 10 weekend breaks a year, looking to do those 2 or 3, really, major kind of getaways, and being, and in order to do that, you're really, you're placing a big bet on going to one place. So I think there's an opportunity for critics like yourself who have got real authority in making those judgment calls, when, will travelers really be happy to just trust the 500 people on TripAdvisor who, may have been pissed off that day, or may not know, have a basis for comparison, or may not be, may have been bribed somehow, or incentivized into giving a good review? Won't they be looking for judgment calls that are a little bit more authoritative?
Yeah, authority for sure. Authority. I wouldn't say, my experience is that intelligent people tend to go to TripAdvisor and sort of take away an aggregate of reviews. It's kind of obvious somebody who's just like a little bit pissed off that they didn't get that special little bit of extra and wanted to be bitchy about it. I think it will definitely kind of separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of influencers. But then look at some of these feeds that are just going crazy. I mean, just delivering the love. I cannot get enough of Italy Segreta. Like I that's like my morning, afternoon, evening joy every day. Delivering the dream, I think, will continue to be something. As far as where you actually go, well, certainly also because the news seems to be changing every 48 hours. They're going to want real authority in the form of people who do hard reporting at The Guardian, at the FT, at the New York, at the Wall Street Journal, the Australian. In as far as like, what are going to be these bubbles, for instance? Is there going to be that Antipodean, the New Zealand, it looks like there will be that accord in the beginning. And then I also just read somewhere that eventually they hope Singapore will be incorporated into that, which is going to be great for all of you guys. I know. Well, that I'm not Singapore based right now. I could get down to Margaret River and be a super happy camper. But, how will that work? Will it be the US and Canada? Will it be the US and Mexico? Somehow I doubt that one, sadly.
Open borders to Mexico doesn't seem likely.
The June 3rd, Italy is open. After everything that's happened there, what a traumatic run of it they've had with COVID. It's open June 3rd. And you hear about these Schengen corridors that might happen. My friend David Pryor, who has the amazing travel company, was saying that there's going to be like an Austria, Italy corridor or Germany, Austria, you know, the sort of, there's a Balkan thing that might be happening. Until 4 days ago, English people were going to be able to go to France and Ireland without a 14-day quarantine imposition. Apparently that was scuppered Friday evening. You know, this is all going to be kind of hard to follow. I think in broad strokes, you know, until there's a vaccine, I think there's going to be a big sort of separating out. It's possible. This is just this is conjecture as far as we're all concerned. I don't have any basis for this except sort of having observed the way travel works for a long time. There will probably be a kind of like separating out of demographics. I mean, people in their 60s or 70s might not want to really do very much until there's a vaccine. You know, there are quite a few indications that there could be a second bump in the fall, people say, a wave of sickness that could be more acute or more widespread. And even if you're not worried about getting sick, you don't want to spend a ton of money to go see gorillas in Rwanda and know from the time you leave that your health insurance is null and void because nobody wants to cover a trip like that, and then possibly be quarantined in Rwanda if you're in America, especially, you know. So it's not, I think it's a lot of it is just, do people want to take the risks as far as what might happen to their trip? There is so much talk about domestic travel, as I'm sure you know. I think domestic travel is harder. You know, if you live on the 36-mile long, whatever it is, island nation of Singapore, what is domestic travel? Like, I'm curious to see what that bubble is going to be, you know?
Yeah.
Like, will you, like, I would be, you know, a place like Laos had relatively few cases from what I understand. Like, would you be able to go to Prabang for the weekend or to Phuket for the weekend? You know, how's that going to shake out in Asia? I think will be interesting to see. There's a lot of America, and then America, of course, is 50 different states with 50 different governors, some of whom feel like nothing ever should have closed. And then Gavin Newsom, the governor of this state, who's been super on it and aggressive since day one.
Yeah.
You know? And we still have the strictest, this whole coastal bar going from Marin County, just north of San Francisco, all the way down to south of Los Angeles is still, a lot of the sort of inland counties of California have released many restrictions because they have really sparse populations. The whole coastal band is still quite strict. I mean, if I cross the county line, apparently I'll get fined $1,000. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have $10,000 fines here for various infractions.
Do you?
So yes.
Wow.
You know, Singapore is a fine country, as the T-shirts say. So no, you don't want to. I would not. It would be a very expensive swim in my swimming pool if I was to.
I don't. Plus, you know, who knows what you'll get these days.
It's not worth 10 grand. I'd rather go out in the rain right now and
spend your 10 grand on a trip coming up.
Save it.
But I do think so. I think there might be this. I went on a bit of a tangent, but I think there will be a demographic of older people who might be much less inclined to range far and wide.
Yeah.
But I think that there might also equally be younger people who. I mean, I've talked about this with a couple of friends, among them David. Like, I'm jonesing to get on a plane. I mean, I'm flying back to England next week.
Okay.
I'm going to quarantine there for 2 weeks in the countryside out of London. And then I'm hoping, I mean, technically, apparently, there is no embargo on people traveling to Italy. You know, if I show up and say, look, I have an apartment full of my stuff, I need to go, I'll quarantine there for 2 weeks. They kind of, there is no, there are flights daily from what I've seen from Heathrow to Rome on Alitalia. So we'll see how that goes, you know, and by which time we're talking about a month from now. So things might have changed, loosened significantly.
Let's hope so.
A lot of younger. Sorry.
Well, no, just going back to what you were saying about, you know, that older demographic, and yeah, as we all know, you know, that's still where a lot of the money is concentrated. Those guys have got more time to spend, so they will have up until now represented a big percentage of revenue for you know, all of the travel ecosystem or travel and leisure ecosystem. how do you think that's going to affect things in the near future? You know, will we see some consolidation? And I don't know.
Oh God, that sort of thing is hard for me to speak with authority on. The business side of things is not really my base. I mean, I know what I hear anecdotally.
Or will it affect, you know, the offering? Because you know, a lot of what hoteliers are, you know, obviously they're horses for courses. They're catering to the people who are coming, and suddenly if their demographic starts skewing more towards, I don't know, people like me, 40 somethings with children, rather than 67-year-old couples with no kids. You know, how do you think they'll react to that? Or it's suddenly 27-year-olds, footloose, fancy-free young couples in their Speedos moving around.
Well, I mean, obviously there's vastly different, even among single hotel conglomerates now. There are, I mean, Bulgari in a way is technically part of Marriott, and the demographic for Bulgari is so different to the demographic for, like, you know, Marriott has that brilliant Autograph company, which is kind of independent hotels, some of which are really, what's the one in Sydney? Is it called Pier 1? The one right under the bridge?
It's very white, yeah. The one under the bridge, yeah. I think
yeah,
it is
it's
white,
super,
yeah.
you know, and that is targeted to that younger kind of freewheeling demographic. They have hotels with family programs. I think volume is the issue and the question. You know, all of these there has been so much development in the hotel world based on the premise that all of those people across all demographics were going to be traveling.
Yeah.
However it shakes out, I could be totally wrong, and all of the boomers are like going to be raring to go, and the first ones back to the Maldives. You know, maybe I'm totally. Yeah. But the point is that they were provisioning for many, many, many more people than I think they're going to get over the next bit of time. I mean, it will. I think the recovery is not. You know, this effectively people are going to lose a whole season right now, and I don't know enough to say how much longer it would go on after that, but I suspect, you know, kind of till we the management of this disease is in hand, not just flattening a curve so that healthcare workers are safe and hospitals can manage, you know, capacities, but like people don't have to worry about getting sick or stuck somewhere. And there are people who won't care as much, or they go to a place like, I do think the minute Europe is open to Americans, a lot of Americans are going to get there. And I do think what there's also that the metrics of, you know, I mean, like 36 million people have filed for unemployment here. I don't know how it is across this government, you know, is handling unemployment differently to the way it's being handled in the UK, but a lot of people might not have money to travel. You know, that's the other thing. It is the circular nature of this in the economy is kind of a scary prospect for people in the hospitality industry as well. I suspect hotels might just kind of psychologically, emotionally be a little bit less attractive to certain kinds of people. They'll want to rent villas. Are probably going to do very well, would be my guess. People want private homes. Or hotels that can be bought out, that are willing to, you know, the smaller places. Honestly, sorry.
No, I just want to hopping back to as you mentioned, all of the layoffs that have been happening. You know, on the sort of flip side to earlier, we were talking about hospitality operators who are doing good stuff and doing good works during this period. On the other side of the coin, do you think that you know, there have been some that have been quite sort of draconian in their layoffs and have not been terribly good to their own people, have kind of thrown their staff under a bus, as it were, during this terrible time? Do you think that customers will penalise those companies? Do you think that stuff will be remembered 6 months, 12 months, 5 years down the track? Will people remember, okay, that operator was they were kind of pricks, so let's not give them our money?
That guy's a dick.
Yeah.
I think probably. I mean, I think, you know, it's hard to say. There are the size of the travel economy is vast, and what we know is everybody on the planet travels. People who will not give a. I think among the kind of people that I tend to write to and for in the publications I write for, the idea of responsible choices is exponentially more prevalent in their decision making than 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. I think it's kind of understood that has to be in the top three things you're considering when you go to travel. And my suspicion is that they how responsibility manifests will be a little bit more about, first of all, within the context of where do I want to go? Because I think what I was starting to say before is that having a bit of a reprieve from working so much all the time and getting a little bit out of the mindset of that, I've actually just been thinking about where I would love to be. And it's I was in India just 3 weeks before I ended up getting kind of stuck in ISO here. And it is extraordinary how much I want to go back there, even though they've just extended their lockdown by 2 weeks, even though it's, arguably would be kind of a tricky, frustrating place to get stuck in a quarantine if they locked down again or you were sick or whatever happened. It's a big, slightly unwieldy, absolutely amazing country. And I think then within the context of where you want to, the point being that I think everybody has really been thinking about where they want to go. That sort of visceral, like, where does travel transport you? Where does it take you? What they're thinking about. And perhaps a little bit less ticking boxes or being the first to that place or, oh, I should see that. I think people just they're going to respond to the need, the sort of the most kind of primal. And that might mean like a fly and flop trip for a lot of people. It might be that a lot of people who used to sort of travel very conscientiously and conspicuously responsibly are going to just want to go lie on a beach in Greece and not do much more than that, and fair enough.
That's I don't mind lying on a beach in Greece or Amalfi or Phuket. No problem there. Look, the last thing I'll ask you, Maria, is where do you think this is? We kind of touched on it earlier, but where do you think this is going to take travel media in future or in the near future? But the thing that interests me, and it is, from my point of view, I've had a lot of the publications that I write or have written travel and hospitality content for in the past say to me, oh, it's not really sensitive to, it seems tone deaf to write about travel when people can't travel. But at the same time, sales of clothing in the United States went down 50% from February to March this year, and are only, the people are buying less and less of fashion. But you don't see the fashion magazines going like, oh, let's stop writing about clothing. Quite the opposite there. Continuing as they always have been. And as you pointed out earlier, travel magazines, those titles that have got the word travel or traveler in their mastheads, they really have no option but to respond in some way or another. But yeah, I don't know. How do you see the sort of near and more medium midterm things sort of evolving in that sphere?
Well, I think I think first of all, people have been reading a lot less print media because they can't access it. They can't. Sure. It's harder to get one's hands on a nice print product, and I'm the biggest fan in the world of a really nice, magazine or weekend newspaper. So many, you wouldn't, the feedback is constant and unrelenting that people love FT Weekend in their hands. It's part of their weekend. But I think that what has been because everybody is reaching their readership digitally, there is a great deal more room to bounce ideas around and to do a bit of testing and see how people feel. Do they want everything through the lens of COVID? Do they want the hard news? Do they want daily updates? Do they want the more kind of inspirational, beautiful, like making me dream, when I can get back, where am I going to go? That kind of deliciousness that translates as well in social media and as it does on page,
Yeah.
as by these feeds like Yolanda YOLO Journal, which is incredible, doing a brilliant job, and Italy Segreta, and all of these places that people are going to look at. Talking to people you and I work with, there was one of these webinars where they interviewed most of the top travel editors at the UK newspapers. And it was kind of split down the middle, that, some people felt very strongly you'd have to be living on the moon to want to run something that wasn't very strictly through the lens of where we are right now with travel in the world, with what might happen, with kind of, prognosticating with the news in mind. And then the guy who edits this Sunday Times travel magazine was like, no, I think people want to be taken away a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm kind of both minds. I'm personally, I'm sort of, trolling the news every day because I want to know when I can go and where I can go. And also for my own, professional benefit. But I'm a big believer in I think it's also helped people remember. It's kind of a nice circle, it distills for you why you go places, what inspires you, what you think is beautiful, what you think is relaxing, what you think is, stimulating and alluring. And a lot of those trips also happen to be ones that have culture at their root, or heritage at their root, or natural beauty at their root. And then you think about the power of a bunch of really, really beautiful images of a place like Namibia or Rajasthan, these incredible back of beyond places. And a lot of people have articulated, just again, anecdotally, like the longer they sit at home, the farther and weirder they're going in their head,
Right. Yeah.
to Kalahari or to the depths of Papua New Guinea or whatever it is. And then a lot of people are just going to Florence or to the beach.
Yeah.
Or here in California. But I think that I would hope that going forward, if there's going to be a paradigm shift or a sea change in the perspective of all of us, it is to encourage people, and this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it's to encourage people to actually think before they travel, to think about how they want to move through the world. If there's one thing that a pandemic has done for us, it's made us realize that like nobody is an exception.
Yeah.
Like exceptionalism is kind of null and void in the face of a disease that can kill you irrespective of how much money you have or how beautiful you are or whatever. Everybody is connected by this thing, which has reminded us that everybody is connected. And that's kind of why you should go out in the world and experience people and experience their history and their food and their buildings and their fashion, and it's all we are all part of it. It's all part of it. I think I just went into the woo-woo space a little bit there. I didn't mean to, but that should inform everything in the travel industry right now.
Yeah. And you just went into the
woo. I went a little bit, I've been in Northern California too long is what I'm saying. I went a little bit.
Okay. You just, yeah, well, I'll just say at this point, if anyone who's watching us now has any questions, please do send those in. But I wanted to, I think absolutely, what you were just saying, or many of the more privileged people in the world have been saying, oh my God, it's this is the great leveler. And initially you had all of this sort of talk about the super rich quarantining on their super yachts, which to me never, despite the fact that you're on a super yacht, you have to send your crew off to to pick up your groceries and your goodies, and then you end up being on like a small cruise ship, and we've all seen what the cruise ships have turned out like. That's the last place I want to be.
Do you want to be the guy who's like sequestered away on your fancy gin palace, making poor people bring you your groceries?
Shout out to David Geffen. Hello, David Geffen, if you're listening.
No, but I think there is, and that said, like, I was just writing the Travelista column for an upcoming edition of the magazine that is kind of the used to be called Boats That Rock and is now just the water just that kind of escape thing. And you know, a lot of these private islands have reconfigured themselves for private takeover. You know, make sort of get a private aircraft or a helicopter to get you there and take it over with your family or your group of friends, and it's super COVID safe, and it's far-flung, super glamorous holiday. That is obviously the preserve of the ultra high net worth people of this world. The rest of the world is going to re-enter travel differently, but that is still available, you know, for that market. So
Okay. Well, lucky
them.
lucky them. Lucky them.
Yeah,
All right.
really, I'm cool if I can make that happen by my birthday in September, let's say. But I think it's looking better than that. So
Yeah. Where is the first place that you're gonna go? What's your where are your feet itchy to head off to once the shackles are off?
you mean properly off, or when I get back to Italy?
I mean properly off, not just getting back to your flat in Italy.
I mean, India again was just kind of, I just could spend, so you know, it's endless. I feel like the longer I'm there, the more I realize how little I have seen, and people I've met and cultures I've kind of immersed in, you know, the 1,000,001 different traditions of food, of architecture, of worship. I mean, it's kind of endless there. And Africa. I had a Namibia trip kind of coming together. And that is one of the emptier places I've ever been, empty of people. So it's isolation of the opposite sort of what we've had, but one of the most visually, physically spectacular places on the planet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that one too.
Well,
and
yeah, those two continents were, those two destinations, Africa and India, were my kind of big on my list for the first half of this year. But sadly, yes, we'll see how we go.
Everybody's, you know, it's a deferral, but we're all in the same boat, so it'll happen.
Yeah, we'll reset the clock. All right, Maria, speaking of reset the clock, I'm going to let you go off and have your rosé sundowners as the sun sets in the over the ocean. And yeah, I'll go and make myself the third coffee of the day. But yeah, look, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, and I think some fascinating insights there. Hello to Paul Semple, and thank you for saying that we're the two most articulate people in the world. I think that's hardly, certainly not at this time of the morning for me. But yeah, great speaking with you, Maria. We'll continue this.
Stay well, and for the year I can actually get to Singapore, so maybe we can see each other.
Well, yeah. Look, it'd be even better if we could catch up in Italy or something of that nature.
I hope to be there.
I cannot wait to get back there. You know, Amalfi, here I come.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, you take care. Lots of love, and thank you everyone who joined us today, and thanks to anyone who's watching this on the recording.
Bye.
Bye. See you.